and welcome back to Best Viewed from Above. It's been a while, probably close to 6 years since I've actually done anything proper. I've dabbled with a few of the DJI Mavics and the FPVs, but it's been a good few years, which led me to actually start digging out all this equipment that I had in storage. I've now moved into a new property, so I'm able to kind of compile it and get it all together. So my plan on this video is just to kind of run through some of the bits and pieces of kit that I've still got and what my plans are. So first off, what's the plans? My plan is to basically get every single one of these airworthy, and I'll document on separate videos of how that goes, the costs involved, what's the kind of technology that's still within these compared to the new ones, and yeah, basically just talk you through, because some of these aircrafts are, you know, probably 10 years old now. I think that wouldn't be far off 10 years old now. And yeah, so I'll just run through everything just now. So we've got well, prior to this one I did have a Raptor 30, which basically looked like one of these but nitro. That was my starting helicopter. Probably had that for about 3-4 months before I realised it was underpowered from just being a 30 size, and I wanted to get into 3D. So I then bought the equivalent of this one here, but a different model made by Outrage, which was the same shape as this but a Velocity 50. Kept that for maybe a year and a half before selling it and getting this. Then started getting into FPV, started following David Vinzestal and got into Tricopter. Started off with the ones that you would sold yourself from a kit, and you recover the 401 rate gyros to make this, and then obviously progressed into the one that you get from Hobby, can't remember the people over in China that we also used. Then got into the DJI F550, which was basically my first video helicopter. It had the 6 props, so it gave you a little bit of redundancy. If it did lose one, you know, you would save the craft with minimum damage, but yeah, it was pretty much a goner. Started off with a GoPro in here. I think it was from Aerotech, I think it was, which was very jittery. The quality was dreadful. Moved on to this, which I had a Casio X-Slim point and shoot camera. So basically you had this servo here that pushed the point and shoot. No image, didn't know if you're shooting the right bit, but that's what the technology was in 2009, 2010 I think it was. Then progressed on to the DJI 2D gimbal, which ran a GoPro as well, directly into here, which then gave you some feedback through the goggles. And then you got the 3D, so this one gave you yaw and up and down, and then the 3D did the third axis as well. This ran a DJI NASA with GPS. GPS was an upgrade at a later date. Had this flying for probably the longest time, probably 3 years, all fed through the DX7, because it was never really, you know, that long range. Through the image came through the Fat Shark goggles. Then got into the Outrage Fusion 50, running 12S batteries, which I think is 54 volts, if I remember right. Had a fire with it due to a Castle Creations speed controller failure, and then kind of retired it a couple of months after that. I just didn't feel comfortable with electric. I liked nitro. Moved over to the Outline Trex 450 Pro, which was basically the beater that I would keep in the car when I was working shifts down at the Aberdeen Harbour. I used to just kind of get some practice in down there. Got into my first quad, which was the Team Black Sheep Discovery, and there's 2 different versions. one with a gimbal, one without a gimbal. So this is the two versions there. I doubt that one will fly, to be honest. It did run the NASA controller as well. Then I bought this probably 5 years ago, which is the Trex 600 Pro Nitro running a 50 size engine, and basically I never flew it. I built it and bought it second hand, but never flew it. So this is going to be the first one that I'm going to build. It's, you know, fly bar, standard 600mm blades, Nitro starter. It'll run the Align 7200 controller with the Quake Quark gyro. So that'll be the first one that we'll do. Then moved on to the DJI S800, which I started off with the top airframe because I think I was about £2,500 by the time you added in, you know, your controllers, your gyros and all that. Then bought the bottom part, which was another couple of £1,000, so I could take photos with a Sony 5N Nex, I think was the camera. This is what I use for my professional stuff. It folds up and goes into this flight case here. So I used this from 2011-ish right through to probably 2015, 2016 when it started getting dated. You know, the flight manuals were getting more and more difficult to kind of complete because you didn't have that much redundancies because you were starting to get into these smaller aircrafts. This weighs 11 kilos all up when you've got the battery. I'll just go and get the battery just now. So this is the battery here. Gave you about 4.5 to 5 minutes depending on what type of flying you were doing. This is one I use for professional stuff, as I mentioned. So I did work for the Evening Express, Jimmy Chung's Going Up in Fire, that was my picture on the front page, and various different things over the years, mostly fires and properties and so on. So I did kind of make a bit of money off it to make it back, and that worked on 2.4 on the controller with a 5.8 gigahertz and image to the Fat Shark goggles, or I preferred using screen, which was attached to here before it broke. So yeah, that will be probably the second one I'll get flying after this one. Got the Phantom 2, which I just used for kind of throwing about. I didn't really like flying this one because it was the one that the BBC, ITV and all your negative press reporters kind of used because it was quite recognisable in the air. So yeah, I tried to stay away from it because you kind of started having people coming up to you about privacy. Back in the day when you were, you know, at this stage, 2010, everyone loved it. It was new technology. But then some stupid people over the years, as you can imagine. Then we've got the ImmersionRC 250, I think it is, which was the racer. Then we've got various chargers, support gear, old GoPros, my old flight case that I used to take around with me. It's got all the spares, tools that I could need, spare antennas, spare receivers, satellites and so on. Then we've got all the bits for the 3D helicopter. Then, probably in 2016, I bought the Mavic, just purely for the fact that it folds up, nice and small, compact, 20-minute flight time versus the 4.5 as I mentioned over there. But there is obviously newer versions with, you know, better quality cameras and lenses to let more light in. And then you've got the FPV, which I've only probably flown 7 times in a year, but as I mentioned, starting to get back into it. So yeah, that is the fleet that I've got left. Probably still a bit of money sitting there, to be honest, but we will get it all flying at some point. So we'll catch you in the next one when we get this one stripped down, checked over, the transmitter programmed, and see where we're at. So thanks very much, good to be back, and I'll catch you up in the next one. Thanks.